So Hellraiser, the new Hellraiser, not the original. This is the 2002 remake. But here's the thing: a lot of horror remakes of franchises, they tend to kind of like lose their way. It feels like they're just repeating the same stuff and not exploring anything new and giving any basically like taking the series in a new direction. And it felt like this Hellraiser film could do that since it's just called Hellraiser. But sometimes that doesn't happen with the horror saga. Sometimes a horror franchise can be taken in from the cold, dust off, look at all its like sequels and say, "Oh man, you're in bad shape here. We gotta dust you off and get you back to your roots." And that's exactly what David Buckner does with his new Hellraiser film. This is everything that kind of like that the original story by Clive Barker kind of had to be. Hellraiser was all about, having like this deeper contemplation on, like the limits of the human body, the existential crisis of the soul, dabbling into like pain and pleasure and all that. And just being just flat out gross. Like if you remember like the original film, it was pretty damn gory if you remember the first kill of that film. And thankfully, this Hellraiser's on the same level. It's the similar premise. There's a mysterious puzzle box, and people are intrigued by it. They try to solve it, and once they kind of solve it, there's a price paid of blood, and out come the Cenobites. These mysterious beings from another dimension that basically torture and rip apart bodies and souls and show you unknown terrors. Basically, they're probably like the creepiest horror villains you'd ever want to run into, just because like some like slasher villains, they might toy with you for a little bit and they might like gut you and kill you instantly. The Cenobites won't let that happen. The Cenobites will torture you. They will let your pain linger long and hard, and it will be horrifying and grotesque. And that happens immediately. Like very quickly in the film, we're introduced to this rich socialite. I'm trying to remember. I think his name was like Roland Vought. Oh yeah, he's played by Goran Vinicic. I believe I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Who basically has this little puzzle box, and he invites over a male prostitute, and he looks at it and he thinks like, "Oh, what is this box? Do I get a prize if I open it?" It's like, "Well, I will. You can dick around with it if you want." And so he plays with the box, and then eventually, kind of solves it, gets stabbed in the hand, and out come the Cenobites. Out come the chains, and out come the hooks, and ripping the flesh apart in a grotesque manner. And it's a perfect way to start off the film. So later, kind of intrigued by this is Riley McKendry, played by Odessa Asian. And she is a recovering drug addict. She resides with other people who are trying to get their life together, but she's struggling to kind of like stay on the wagon. She's starting to form romances with other addicts, and she can't quite get her life together. And then she discovers the puzzle box and thinks, "Oh wow, this is kind of neat. What's going on with this?" And eventually, she does meet the Cenobites, including the lead Cenobite of Pinhead, or I guess you want to call it like the Hell Priest, played by Jamie Clayton. And the Hell Priest basically says like, "Hey, I can show you some pretty cool crap if you sacrifice some souls. And if you don't sacrifice some souls, I'm going to take your soul and rip it apart," as as the classic Hellraiser would say. And the thing is, I really like Jamie Clayton's portrayal of the Hell Priest, just because she has like a little bit of like a deep, sultry voice that brings a bit more of like eroticism to the character, especially since like the other Cenobites have like this wee bit of like a like erotic nature to them, and how they like dabble in all like the pains and the flesh of the spirit, and she does a masterful performance, just creeping you out anytime she's on screen, when the way she stares at you with those dead eyes, and when she wants to torture you, she'll like pull the pin right out of her head right here, and then oh my god, I'll briefly say this, one of the grossest kills in the film, not even the kills, one of the grossest tortures, is when she takes the pin from her head and there's a really grotesque close-up of like someone's ear canal getting this the pin being shoved right through there. And oh god, it is so creepy, and it gets under your skin. Like, and I appreciate that about a horror film, because like it feels like so many horror films kind of go on like autopilot and don't feel like they kind of like creep you out and disgust you. So I always appreciate when a horror film can do that. I got that a little bit this year with like Crimes of the Future, and here I definitely got more of that with that scene, especially with how the rest of that scene occurs, because this one woman basically just gets torn to shreds, and it is, oh, it's gross. It is absolutely gross. And that's kind of what you want out of a Hellraiser film. You want it to be sick and disgusting and gross, but also feel like it's about something more than that. Because I know I'm selling it on all like the gross out kills and all that, because that stuff is pretty fun. But in a weird, bizarre way. But on another level, I like the fact that how Roland Vought is kind of using the Cenobites to attain something more. So the film is definitely about greed, not just of money, but of like the human spirit. Because the whole thing with like Roland Vought is that he wanted immortality, and he kind of got it from the Cenobites in a weird way. He got this bizarre contraption that kind of looks like a machine has entered his body and kind of like twists his intestines and veins around. And it's nasty and gory. But he decides like, oh, I want more than that. He doesn't just want like immortality now. Now he's taunted by saying like, you know, I want kind of more what you have. I want to go where you've been. I want to see what you've seen. I want more pleasure. Basically it amounts to like he wants more out of life. Which is a very kind of like human trait. We're always seeking like the next mountain to climb, the next challenge, and I like the fact that like Roland's whole plan is that he's gonna trap the Cenobites. Like he essentially leads this band of drug addicts who have the puzzle box back to his place, which he's built as this huge Cenobite trap of a mansion. So it's kind of like David Gordon Green's Halloween. In a sense of that, it's a little bit of like a house. There's no like Home Alone elements where there's like goofy like trap door like spike traps or stuff like that. It's just mostly just like trap doors and stuff like that, saying, "Ha, gotcha." So now Cenobites, you gonna give me something cool? and they kind of do. I was actually very fascinated with how this film ends by basically Roland's greed being fulfilled, but in a bizarre and very surreal manner that it's hard to describe. It's one of those things where it's kind of like you kind of gotta sit with it a while and try to like figure out what exactly did Roland attain, and did it bring him happiness? Because ultimately it feels like he was kind of just shedding more of his flesh, but after that he's done that there's something that exists beyond that, like a greater pleasure that can, you know, not just basically experiencing the same thing that the Cenobites feel, and how they believe that they know more that's beyond our reality than the simple pleasures of our own. Which creates an interesting dynamic with how like the drug addicts are addicted to their vices and kind of trapped within there, and, you know, like with Roland and his greed. So there's all these great little parallels here. I will say that the first act of this film is very slow. It proceeds at a little bit of a slow pace just because we got to establish Riley and a few other characters just so that we can get to know and like them a bit before, like, you know, the Cenobites start coming forward and torturing them in the most grotesque way possible, like I've mentioned all the ways before. But once it gets to that moment where Riley opens up the puzzle box and you start seeing reality shift, you get all these like cool effects of like the walls kind of like come apart, and like they turn into like these weird kind of like they basically like turn into cubes and basically like fall back and push things to the side and change the lighting, and just all of like these sets are like so great to look at. And yeah, like the whole staging is just gross and bizarre and surreal, and the greater themes of tapping into greed and vice and existentialism are all work so well here that that I think like it's kind of like neck and neck with like the first Hellraiser film for me. And the thing I love most about this film is that it doesn't establish a clear canon. Like, for all we know, this could be a sequel, it could be a reboot, it could be a remake. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. All you need to know is that the Cenobites are back. There's a puzzle box, and you know, there's Cenobites running around killing people and torturing them in the most grotesque way. And it works so well on that level. So however you want to label this, as a remake, reboot, sequel, spin-off, probably not spin-off. It just works so well here, and Jamie Clayton makes an amazing Hell Priest.